It's me. I'm back. Hello, everybody. Mpumi Mbonane here. It hasn't changed, guys. For the next couple of 1,000 episodes, it'll be me. I'm not going anywhere because I'm committed to my course of helping you pivot into a fulfilling career with more impact and more income by discovering your purpose and aligning it to a suitable profession. Today, I wanted to talk about why I even thought of the idea or the concept of merging one's purpose with one's profession. Because for the longest time, work has been sold to us as just that, work. You go, you get work done, you get money at the end of the month, and you pay the bills. Purpose is something you do in the weekend. Purpose is something you do at church. And I'm mentioning this particularly because whenever we think purpose, well, a lot of the times in the past, it was always a pastor, somebody in the music team who's a worshiper, people who are doing ministry. Never had it occur to us that purpose can be in the marketplace, that purpose can be something we do in academia, that purpose can be something we'll fulfill as a business. It had never occurred to us. We always thought whenever it's purpose, it has to be full-time ministry. Hallelujah. But I'm here to say there is a universe where we can actually do what we love and get paid to do what we love. And not just doing what you love, but doing work or what you love and that thing being loved by other people as well, because it is serving them in some capacity. And today, that's exactly what I want to talk about. Why it is a genius idea to merge your purpose, being the reason you are here, and your profession, being the thing you do every day until you're old and gray. Are you ready for this episode? Let's go. So, I always had a problem with myself, right? Okay, maybe not always, but at some point I had an issue with myself. And the issue that I had with myself is why I am such a perfectionist. I never understood it. I never got it. Up until I got a revelation that showed me two things. One is more personal, and I know my mom watches these videos, so I hope she doesn't get offended, but this is not offensive. I discovered that my mom is a superhuman. And what I mean by this is there is nothing that girl can't do. And she doesn't just do those things, she does them extremely well. So the fact that I had someone as a parent who had such high standards and could keep those standards, I was like, I need to level up. I need to do things well. And so that's why I've been a perfectionist all my life, because I've been with a mother, was raised by a mother who just does everything exceptionally well. But another thing as well is I realized that the perfectionism in me was driven by the fact that in my mind, it made sense that if something has been designed for a particular reason, there is no reason why, or there's absolutely no sense in that reason not being fulfilled well. Let me try phrase this in a different way. If I know that this phone is created for me to call a friend or to call my grandmother, and every time I can't hear because the speaker isn't working, because the mic is not, then it's a problem. Clearly, you are not fulfilling what you need to. There's something flawed about this thing. It's not perfect. And so with my perfectionism, I thought, there has to be something that I'm brilliant in. There has to be something that feels like home when I do. There has to be something wherein I fit squarely, as in I am a square peg and I'm fitting in a square mold or square shape opening, because that's exactly what I was created and designed to do. So I understood that my perfection really came from a place of believing that there must be something for everybody to do. There isn't randomness in why we were created. And here's the other thing I couldn't settle in my spirit, that I serve a God who is so intentional, who is so meticulous in his creation, that he would create the sun to come up at a certain time of the day to give light to the earth and to give us warmth. A God who is so particular about where the sea goes and to what point the waves go, and no further than that. A God who is so intentional about putting dew on the ground for the ground to be watered, And that same God wouldn't be concerned with me finding joy and fulfillment in what I do. It did not tally. I served a God too orderly for me to feel at a disarray. I don't know how much of my story you know, but I was someone who was so interested in always developing people even at a young age. And people back then were kids, because those are who I had influence on back then. But then I was told, you're so brilliant, you're good at math, you're good at science, you have to be an engineer. And that is what I pursued. Not because I wanted to, but because that was the conventional way to follow for somebody who had my brain function, right? Hated every minute of it. From day one of engineering, I hated it. I left and I went to, I worked at a technical consulting firm. Nothing about that job tickled my fancy. And I'm not saying that we only need to stay at jobs because they make us feel good, no. But I just knew I didn't belong. Went into the bank, and not because I didn't know what to do, but I went into the bank because I knew that the bank was a means to an end. And when I used the bank as a means to an end and I got to my end, I was like, thanks guys, you've served me well, and I left. And I'm saying this to illustrate to Wits. There was a point where I really felt at such disarray, where I felt so disoriented, where I knew that I'm in a place I don't belong. And it did not make sense for me to serve a God of order, but for my life to be in disorder, for my life to be a mess. And so I sat and I thought, Lord, I need to find something that makes sense for me to do. I need for all my days to be spent doing the very thing that I'm on this earth to do, because it did not make sense that every other day I do random work and only on the weekend I do what I'm created to do. Then what am I doing all this time? Why am I wasting my life doing things that don't even utilize or need my highest capacity, and I only do that thing one day in a week? It absolutely made no sense to me. And here's the thing. This whole purpose thing has been discussed a lot nowadays, and it sounds like to later generations, or to former generations like our boomers and all those who came before them, it sounds to them like Gen Zs and millennials want easy living, soft life. They don't want to work. Right? And I had to think about it a bit. So we'll see, am I the problem? Am I problematic in that I don't want to do hard work anymore? I just want things to come easy to me. And I asked this question. I really had to take it to God to say, Lord, am I the problem? Like, is this a new thing? Is this a Generation Z millennial thing? And I learned that it's not. Now, I'm going to read a couple of scripts from the Bible, and I just want to put it out there. I am a God girl, and if there's one thing I am absolutely brilliant in, is bringing the Bible to life. That is, I'm able to take a scripture and put it so practically into everyday living that it just makes sense to think a certain way or to do certain things. And here's what I believe about the Bible. The Bible is a manual, and it is a manual for people it is a manual given by a creator, by the God who created them. So if I were to create something, I would obviously need to give it a manual to say, this is how it works. If you ever come into contact with this person or with this thing, this is how it works. And so that's what the Bible really is. It's a manual for how we are to function. And so almost all the lessons that I'm going to be sharing from this point on was going to be from that lens. Okay, so let's go to Ecclesiastes 2. Whether you have your Bible or not is okay, because I'm going to read it from my Bible. And I'm going to switch between Amplified Version, the Message Translation, and NKJV, depending on how I feel at the moment. Okay, Ecclesiastes 2, verse 17 to 24. And I'm going to read this one in the Message Translation. And it says, so let me maybe give a bit of context. This is Solomon speaking. So he wrote this book, and he was a very contemplative man. One thing I love about Solomon is that he used to think. He thought about everything. He questioned everything. He really reasoned things out. And in verse 17, he says, I hate life. Point blank, period. I hate life. How many of you can relate to the statements of hating life? Every Monday, it's like, oh my gosh, where am I going? I hate this part right here. He says, I hate life. As far as I can see, what happens on earth is a bad business. It's smoke. It's spitting into the wind. Verse 18 to 19, and I hated everything I'd accomplished and accumulated on this earth. I don't know how many interviews of old people you've listened to, but a lot of them, even though they are proud of what they've done, even though they're proud of what they've accumulated over the years, the one regret all of them have is not having done the very thing they wanted to do, not having fulfilled the dreams that they had. I've got all these things, I've amassed all this wealth, but I never really got to do what I love. So this is what he's thinking about. He hasn't yet come to a point in his life where he's surrendering or where he's about to die. But he says, I hated everything I'd accomplished and accumulated on this earth. I can't take it with me. No, I have to leave it to whoever comes after me, whether they're worthy or worthless. And who's to tell? They'll take over the earthly results of my intense thinking and hard work. Smoke. And I want to mention this because every time we're told about a career we need to build and a life we need to lead, it's always about leaving a legacy. Very rarely are we talked to or told or taught to live the legacy. So we want to leave a legacy without even having enjoyed the fruit of that labor or enjoyed the benefits of that legacy. And that is what he is fighting against. That I'm doing so much just to leave a legacy? Let's keep reading. That's when I called it quits. Gave up on anything that could be hoped for on this earth. What's the point of working your fingers to the bone if you have to hand over what you worked for to someone who never lifted a finger for it? Smoke. That's what it is. A bad business from start to finish. So what do we get from a life of hard labor? Pain and grief, from dusk to dawn, never a decent night's rest, nothing but smoke. And here he's really talking about, hey, siyafukuza, we work. We work our fingers to the bone for the things that we want. But what do we get out of all of this? Solomon wasn't a Gen Z. Solomon wasn't a millennial. This person lived before Christ even. And he was complaining about the very things we complain about. I have to leave this legacy to people who never lifted a finger to acquire it. I have to work. I have to work day and night, and I don't even sleep some nights. Smoke. That's what it is. And then in verse 24, which is going to be the last verse we read in this part, he says, the best thing you can do with your life is have a good time and get by the best you can. That way, I see it. That's it. Divine fate. Whether we feast or fast, it's up to God. I also then want to read Ecclesiastes 3, the very next chapter. Ecclesiastes 3, 9 to 13. Okay, let me read it in the Amplified Translation. And in the Amplified Translation, it says, this is verse 9. It says, what profit is there for the worker from that in which he labors? I have seen the task which God has given to the sons of men, with which to occupy themselves. He has made everything beautiful and appropriate in its time. He has also planted eternity, and that is a sense of divine purpose in the human heart, a mysterious longing which nothing under the sun can satisfy except God. Yet man cannot find out or comprehend or grasp what God has done, which is his overall plan from the beginning to the end. So the epiphany he comes to here is God has put a sense of destiny, a sense of purpose in each and every one of us. He's given us a task that can't be filled by anything but him. And then when it continues, he says, I actually realized that there's nothing better than for us to really just find joy in the things that we do, in the work that we do particularly. And this for me is what broke it for me, right? Or is what took the scales off of my eyes. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 18 to 22. And here, I'm not going to read it, but here what we find is that he's comparing the lives of animals and the lives of people. And he says animals and people are both born at some point in their lives. At some point in their lives, these people cry, or these creatures cry. And by creatures, I mean animals and people. Cry. We go to the toilet because we eat. We go to bed because we're tired. We wake up the next day and we start all over again. And it's like, then what is the benefits of really being a human being if you can just be an animal and go through the same experience in life? And when he comes to this epiphany for me, it really, 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 really changed my life. And here's how it changed my life. And I'm going to read this in the New King James Version, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 22. So I perceived that nothing is better than that a man should rejoice in his own work, for that is his heritage. For who will bring him to see what will happen after? As he laments and cries about, I'm working myself to the bone. I need to leave a legacy for my kids. I need to work from dusk to dawn. I'm tired. I hate life. He comes to two epiphanies. The one is, actually, I'm feeling like this because there is a longing I am not fulfilling. There is a sense of purpose that is not being fulfilled by the work that I do. And then in verse 22, he says, after comparing the life of an animal and the life of people, I have perceived that nothing is better than for us to find joy in the work that we do. That is our heritage. And I'm a very curious person. I wanted to know what heritage means. The archaic definition of heritage is a special or individual possession, an allotted portion. So he says it is everyone's special and individual possession to find work that brings them joy, to find joy in the work that they do. It is everyone's allotted portion. No one is excluded from the privilege. No one is excluded from the beauty, because God has made everything beautiful in His time. Nobody is excluded from the beauty and the heritage of finding joy in the work that they do, or better yet, finding work that will bring them joy. So then I made a decision. I need to find the work that will bring me joy, because that is my heritage. That is my allotted portion. That is my individual possession. I need to find that work. And so I decided I'm going to be a purpose practitioner. A practitioner in any field is a person who's actively engaged in an art, in a discipline, or in a profession. And I told myself it just makes sense for me to be actively engaged in a profession that is in line with my purpose, to actually do work that I was created to do, work that will bring me joy, work that will add value to the world, and work that when I do, I get handsomely and richly rewarded because I am contributing and putting out my best work ever. And so that's my challenge to you. Does it make sense for you to become a purpose practitioner? Does it make sense for you to find joy in the work that you do, or better yet, find work that will bring you joy? Because honestly, it did not make sense to me to dedicate the best time of my day, morning to afternoon, best time of my day, the best 8 hours of my day, to work that I absolutely hate, to work that I feel no connection to work that I believe is meaningless to the whole point of my existence. It made sense to me to dedicate the best years of my life, because we start working when we're 20, 21, 22, right up till we're 60. It made absolutely no sense to me to work those 40 years of my life, the prime of my life, only to start enjoying my money, to start enjoying my life when I'm 65, when I'm old and frail, to start traveling when all I want to do is sit down, when I can't walk about the streets of Italy, when I can't really take in the beauty of nature. It made absolutely no sense to me. And so I thought, I will use the best hours of my day and the best years of my life doing the best work of my life, doing the work that I was designed and created to do. That is why I'm a purpose practitioner. That is why I invite you to be a purpose practitioner. And that is why it makes sense to align your purpose to your profession. Because every day of your life, every moment of your life, you are living up to the very reason that you were created to live. I hope this helped. I hope this convinced you. Until next time, bye.